Yo, what's up guys? It's Storm bringing you a new video today where we'll be going over Moonstone, the newest card coming to Marvel Snap starting this second spotlight week, right? So Moonstone is an interesting card. She is a 4/6 ongoing card that has the ongoing effects of your 1, 2, and 3 costed cards in the game, right? So strong card. Really strong card. I have to pause there because when I was doing research on this card, I was looking at the ongoing cards that would really benefit from this effect, and it's actually insane some of the stuff that you can do. You can go really over the top with this ability because of the way that it functions and how it kind of just doubles up, you know, these lower costed ongoing effects. And then when you start throwing things like Mystique in, it's insane. So let's go over some of the bread and butter combos that you're going to see when Moonstone comes out. So some of the cards that I've seen, you know, when I was doing some research on this card, I think will be really good at is Ant-Man, right? Ant-Man is essentially a 1/5. Moonstone will then gain that 4+ power, making it a 4/10. So off rip, that's just +8 power, just copying, you know, just playing these two cards in the same lane is just +8 power. Insane. Cards like Victoria Hand, which will essentially allow Moonstone to give other card generator cards +2 power. Insane. It's actually insane, right? You get something like a Swarm in your hand from discard. Now you have, what is it? That would be 0/7 swarms in your hand that you get to place down, and it's just so much power that just ends up adding up towards the end of the game. It's, again, insane. I keep saying it. You have cards like Patriot. Patriot is a deck that has kind of fallen out, but if you put Patriot out and then Moonstone, that's 2 Patriots. You know, you Iron Man, sorry, no, you Ultron, and your Ultron bots are now gaining so much power. It's actually crazy. So Moonstone kind of enables these smaller cards to an insane level, because just generally having 2 times the effect of something, as you can see when Mystique copies stuff like Iron Man, or Mystique copies some of these smaller costed cards too, which is also a really strong card, and that's going to be with Moonstone. It just adds up very fast. Now, speaking of Mystique, right, you could essentially have Mystique copy the Moonstone, which I think will be the better option to do, because she essentially will now have all the other ongoing effects that are there. So you can have something like Patriot into Moonstone into Mystique, or any other option like Captain America. So, you know, you can really just play this deck any way that you want, unless your opponent really has the counter to the deck that you're playing. I really don't see how Moonstone will be a bad card. And you can even go over the top with Onslaught. Now, Onslaught is the final kind of pro card that I have here. It doesn't synergize in the sense of it being a low costed ongoing card, but being able to just double all of the ongoing effects that are there, on top of the fact that they're already kind of being doubled, you know, by Moonstone. Just like it's just math that I do not want to do, and I'm just scared of, right? So I will be bringing Enchantress to every deck because I do not want to deal with this. But yeah, let's just go over some of the other pros in this for this card. Moonstone is a natural curve play, right? She's an ongoing card that can be placed later, but because she's a 4/6 and 4 coasted cards aren't generally really wanted to be played on turn 4, I think that she's a card that's going to fit very well when you just want to play her down and it's turn 4 and you have her. Just go ahead and do it. You know, even if you play her down on a location that's empty, you can always fill that location up with other ongoing cards to kind of really get the most out of her effect. So I think she's a decently statted 4/6 with a very strong ability, and I think that's a very strong pro. I think as time goes on, Moonstone will only get better. As time goes on, we're going to continue to get ongoing cards, right? And they're going to just benefit from having their ability doubled. So Moonstone is definitely a card that I see, if you get her now, she might be a card where it's like, okay, I'm banking on you, right? Because if time rolls around and, you know, the way that we get spotlight keys and tokens and stuff doesn't improve, Moonstone is going to be a card where you might regret not getting her, because I do feel like that she is going to just be very strong eventually, if not when she initially comes out. And let's talk about the cons, because I do think she does have some pretty glaring cons. So Moonstone has a few counters here, right? I think she her main counter will always be Enchantress, who can just straight negate her ability. You have cards like Echo, Rogue, and the reason why I have Lady Deathstrike here is because Lady Deathstrike will get rid of the lower costed ongoing cards. There's no ongoing card in the game that's less than 3 power that has, well, there are, but there's no ongoing card in the game that's 3 costed and under that has over 3 power. That's a very good ongoing card. So what I mean by that is, right, you have cards like Jean Grey. Jean Grey is not really that good of a card, and it's not really good. Most of the ongoing cards, so Ant-Man's, you have the Victorian Hands, Mystique, they're gonna get destroyed by Lady Deathstrike. It's clipped, like they're cooked. And that's why I put her in here. She doesn't necessarily counter Moonstone in the sense where she goes after the card. She goes after the cards that supplement Moonstone. So that's why she here. And Super Scroll in and of itself will be the card that will completely shut down Moonstone. Not only is Super Scroll going to copy Moonstone's ability, it's going to be a all one-stop shop card to counter all the other ongoing cards that are in the same lane as Moonstone. It's actually insane what Super Scroll will be doing. He'll be essentially copying 2, 3, or 4 cards at a time in one lane with just one card. So shout out to Super Scroll for being a GOAT. And Red Guardian, of course, one-stop shop for a 3-cost card. Straight up silences Moonstone. But I wouldn't really say it's a viable counter. It's more of a check, because Red Guardian only goes after 1 card, and essentially these other ongoing cards that will be in the same lane as Moonstone will kind of piggyback off one another, right? So if you destroy one or you remove the text for one, usually the combo can still go off if things get copied correctly. So definitely be wary of that with the Red Guardian counter. But some other kind of cons that I will kind of throw out there is Moonstone is essentially a combo card. She is really dependent on having other ongoing cards with her. So if you happen to not pull your combos, it can feel very bad, because a 4/6 on itself is a decent card, you know, decent stats. But if you do not have ongoing cards that complement her, she's not going to hold a lane by herself. She's very susceptible to just straight up losing a lane. So it's definitely something to look out for. And if her ability gets taken away, I think the decks that she's put in greatly affected by it. The reason why I say that is because Moonstone essentially doubles all the other cards. But if she's the card that gets removed with Red Guardian or Enchantress or Rogue, it does take away a lot of the power output that those decks could have, essentially. But the good thing I would generally say about Moonstone is the decks that she'll be put in were already decks that could reach, you know, pretty decent to high numbers, high teens, you know, low 20s, mid 20s possibly. But with this double up effect from Moonstone, those cards, they go from being 20s to being 30s. So she really enables them to kind of swing over some of the higher, stronger power decks in the game. And speaking of that, let's just kind of go over the star rating, right? So Moonstone, I would say it's a very versatile ongoing card. She's a card that you're going to want to bank on, especially as time goes on. You know, you'll see that she is basically going to be a card that's like, hey, she only fits in very specific strategies, but the strategies she fit in, right? Likely the Victorian Hand, the, you know, the Onslaught ongoings, the, you know, the Patriot decks. Those decks can hold their own, but she's going to be the final key that might push them to meta. But she's very specific. So that's the reason why I gave her a 3 star, sorry. I do think that because she is so pigeonholed into that archetype, and without her, those archetypes won't reach, you know, super high status. I do think that kind of knocks her down a little bit. Also, her stats are not the worst, but a 4/6 just generally doesn't really kind of stand up to you know, the power level that we really see nowadays with cards. I would say the final thing that really kind of knocks her down one more peg, and the reason why I really give her a 3-star is because her counters are cards that are just generally very good. Victorian Hand is a card that just came out, and Moonstone is another ongoing card that will be affected by the same counters by that card. It's also not surprising that ongoing cards are just generally strong because their abilities happen regardless of when they are played. So people tend to run some kind of counter against them, and I think that does kind of, you know, damper her ability and her peak performance. But generally, should you get this card? I'm kind of leaning on the no. I do think that Moonstone will be eventually a stronger card, but is it worth grabbing, especially with some of the other cards coming out this month? I'm not sure. I don't think so. If you play the cards that this deck, you know, that this card wants to go with, right? These other ongoing cards or that specific archetype, go for it. If you're trying to save some keys, if you're trying to really wait out for something that's a bit stronger, I would probably see what other content creators say and kind of make your decision off of that. But yeah, that's just my general thoughts on Moonstone. Thank you guys for getting through the video, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.